Hi everyone, how are you doing? I'm Anna and today I'm gonna woodburn this dragonfly on a teak bowl. It's the first time that I work on a curved surface, but it went pretty well and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Let's get started. I fell in love with this bowl just because it's not a perfect shape. I usually work on a flat surface, so I wanted to start with a simple design. I think the dragonfly fits perfectly for this. The pencil lines were a bit hard to see, so I made sure they stayed in place by tracing the outlines of the design with a micro writer. Actually, I used that tip for the entire project. Teak is pretty hard wood and the micro writer produces very clean and smooth lines. Normally with animal portraits you don't want to outline, but I'm not going for a photorealistic design here and it doesn't have to be perfect. I start quite light at first, but when I want some darker parts, I go over it with a slower hand speed. Later on I can darken it some more, but my first concern was to get all the details in place. I also wanted to block in all the dark parts on the dragonfly. I was really concentrated for that because I didn't want to mess up that part. I could have used the shader tip for this, but the micro writer did a better job than I expected. I used mostly circular motion for that and it had a pretty smooth result, so I didn't feel the need to change the tip. I've printed the photo reference and cut it out, so when I got lost in the details I could compare it side to side. The end result is not completely the same as the reference, but that wasn't my intention anyway. The thorax, the part where the wings are attached to the body, that was the most tricky part, because there are so many details. Some people like to include all the details in their sketch, including all the transitions between highlights and shadows. I don't. I tend to get lost in all the lines, so I rather have as little sketch lines as possible. Either way, you have to look at your reference closely to get a somewhat believable end result. Every time I stare at my reference, I cut it out of my footage, because it's not pleasant to watch. But sometimes it takes longer to watch and compare your artwork to the reference than that it actually takes to burn that particular section. That's completely fine. I like to block in the darker sections first. It can look a bit funny in that stage because the contrast is very high, but that will solve itself when adding more shading to the lighter parts. I do that with a slightly lower heat and a faster hand movement. I was actually quite surprised what I could achieve with that pen tip. I burned very tight circles and it made a pretty smooth shading. I also didn't press on the wood, let the tip glide over the surface and let the weight of the pen do the trick. Here you see me working on the eyes for a bit. I wanted to have those mostly in place. Now you can see what difference it makes when you add some shading. But before I start doing the rest of the shading, I also have to burn in the wings. I procrastinated working on those, because I didn't want to mess it up. The wings are so iconic for a dragonfly and they had to be done. They are very detailed with all those veins running through. I've sketched a few guidelines, but I'm mostly just winging it. As long as you can somewhat imitate the pattern, it still reads as a dragonfly. But I am paying attention to the size and the direction of the texture, because that can make the difference between a stylized or a more realistic illustration. Making all those veins can be a bit tedious for some people, but I found it quite therapeutic. You slowly build up the wings and it all makes the dragonfly come together. I darken and thicken up some veins a bit so they stand out against the rest. Sometimes I was struggling to hold the pen and the ball in the best position to get the job done. The next time if I burn a ball again, I would place it on a bag filled with rice or something, so it will stay better in place without holding it myself. I reckon that works more comfortable, especially with painful or rheumatic hands. I erase the pencil lines in the section when I don't need them anymore. That way I can see better if I need to adjust something. The wings are transparent, so I just burn the veins over the legs. After I burned the first set of wings, I decided to work a bit more on the thorax for some reason, before I continue on the left set of wings. That's basically the same technique as the other side, so I speed the footage a bit up to make it not so boring for you to watch. On the other hand, real-time footage can be very helpful if you want to follow along or if you try to learn pyrography. Are you interested in more real-time footage of me drawing or burning? Maybe a multiple part video project from start to finish or something like that? Please let me know and share your thoughts and ideas about it in the comments down below. When the wings are done, I erase all the remaining graphite and begin darken some parts and finishing the shading on the thorax. Those finishing touches brought the whole piece together. Although Teak has a very hard surface, this ball burns very smooth and even. There wasn't much softer grain in it that would make it difficult to burn. I really enjoyed making it. And that was it. I really love how this dragonfly turned out. Again, share your thoughts and suggestions in the comments and stay tuned for more. Have a nice day, until next time.